Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 5-8. LB, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm well, you know. It's it seems like we were just here. I feel like the Fridays just whiz by, the weeks move by super fast, and you know, lots of news, avalanche of news. Of course, the most important story this week. I don't know if you knew this. I mean, Maggie Haberman actually has a book out. Did you know that?
Oh yeah.
It's crazy. I know you don't really hear that much about it. It's you know, you have to be really in the know to understand.
Under the radar.
It's really under the radar. It seriously though, this is like the Super Bowl halftime show doesn't have any, like, has there ever been this much buildup and advertising for something that most people don't give a fuck about ever in the history of anything? Because she must have a very good PR team. That's all I'm going to say.
I think she's got like really has a top-notch PR there going. I wonder how they know her.
I don't know.
I wonder.
It's such a mystery.
Almost like it's the same publicist as the Kushners and the Trumps get, and Ivanka. Almost like the same.
Couldn't be. I don't think so. That has to be a wild coincidence.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm just, you know, conspiratorial, I guess. So, you know, it was a long week for me.
Yeah.
Long. Yeah, but I'm here. I'm happy to be at the end of it. What are you drinking? Tell us what you're drinking.
Oh, this is a new thing because I ran out of the house so many times that I didn't feel like going back out to get like seltzer. So I
Yeah.
just looked at what I had, and I have grenadine that I had packed away from like before the the pandemic, because
Okay.
the kids were like, exploring. So I had to like pack all of the alcohol in the house into a packing box that I sealed with duct tape. So I
Okay.
unsealed it. I was looking for
The
Kahlua.
teenagers, not kids, you're teenagers. You're
Yeah,
you're
the teenagers.
almost adults. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was looking for Kahlua because I was going to have a White Russian, because
Oh,
that would be appropriate
perfect.
for
That would
today.
be it.
But I found grenadine. So this is vodka and grenadine and lemon juice and bitters, and that cherry on the bottom, and it's not quite as bad as it sounds.
It sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I'm doing my drink, everybody. It's got some red lipstick on it now, but of the tonic and Rose's lime. And tonight, because our guest won't be drinking, we got a little vodka in there. We always try to make sure we have a non-alcoholic thing.
Yeah.
All right. So just to remind everybody about our format of what we do here, we do 5 topics, 8 minutes each, and subscribe and share and like. All right.
Oh, that's
Don't
good.
forget to
That's
subscribe.
I'm glad that you
I
reminded
did that
everybody.
for you. Yeah, I
Thank
did that
you.
for you.
I'm
'cause I know
never.
you
We're gonna
think
have to. We're gonna. If we're like 22 episodes in and we still can't figure this fucking beginning thing, we should like script it or something. If only one of us had experience with writing scripts.
If
would be great.
only. If
Yeah.
only. All right, let's dive in. Let's get into our first topic here. I'm putting the timer on.
Okay.
All right, go.
Okay. It's nuclear football. I couldn't sleep last night. I was really kind of upset and pissed off at the media, at Putin, at this whole like thing with the nukes, right? Because it's like nuclear weapons. President Biden yesterday was asked a question about this and gave a fairly long, detailed answer, which the press immediately got rid of all context and just said, "Oh my God, Biden said that Putin said that it's not joking about nukes, it's Armageddon." And like everybody on Twitter freaked the fuck out. Okay.
Yeah.
So we need to take a step back. Okay. Being
Yeah.
scared of this reflexively, like I get it, it's horrifying, right? Nuclear weapons are awful. Nobody wants war. Duh. Okay. But being scared of this reflexively and therefore just letting the guy do whatever the fuck he wants to do is madness. Okay. He's not joking. Oh, well, if you're not joking, then go ahead and take Ukraine. And if you're still not joking, why not take the former, Lithuania and Latvia and Estonia? And hey, if you're not joking, how about Finland and Germany? And like, there's a line that we're going to fucking draw. So how many people need to die? How many women need to be raped? How many Ukrainian men have to be castrated? How many buildings need to be blown up before we just take it to this guy? I mean, I don't understand what we're waiting for. This is all he has. Okay. It's all he has is this threat, and us constantly, it's like a Pavlov's dog thing where the minute the word nuclear appears, everybody freaks the fuck out. Like it's the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is not the same thing right now. First of all, let's put away the fact that God knows if these weapons even work, because nothing else in the Russian military has done jack shit. Okay. What happens if he launches a nuclear weapon in Ukraine? What changes? The Ukrainians aren't going to surrender. They're going to keep fighting until they're down to their last person. That's been well established now. What's going to change is we now have the pretext to go in and completely destroy their military and take the guy out. So it doesn't help him at all to do this. All he's doing is he's like, it's like there's a Simpsons episode, which I think is a parody of the Twilight Zone, where Bart can make things happen with his mind, and everyone's so scared of him because they're afraid that he's going to do the things with his mind.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, Putin can't do shit with his mind. Only Trump can do stuff with his mind, like declassify. Putin can't do stuff with his mind. It's a threat. That's all that it is. And appeasing him doesn't fucking work. It didn't work for Hitler. And you say what you will about Neville Chamberlain. He didn't have the example of Hitler to go from. We have the fucking example. And it's not like Hitler is some unknown. How many movies and books have been written about this guy? We know the appeasement doesn't work. Okay. Right. We appeased him in 2014 when he invaded Ukraine. We appeased him. We let him do it. We let him get away with it. And what happened? Did he stop? Was he satisfied? No, he kept invading. And he's going to keep invading until we fucking stand up to him. Period. Right. So this is the time. The Ukraine is going to keep fighting. We have to fight with them. And not only that, I'm almost done. Okay. The message that this sends, Victor Rudd was on my podcast telling the same thing. The message that this sends, this constant fear and, oh my God, he's serious. We better.
Yeah.
If you're North Korea, if you're China, if
That's
you're
right.
the other nuclear powers, you look
That's
at this
right.
and you say, these people are wimps. They're simps for this guy. They're falling for the fucking Lucy football
right.
every goddamn time. What's to stop China from invading Taiwan? The Americans aren't going to do anything. They didn't do anything with Putin. Like, it's complicated and it's complex. And yes, nobody wants war. But for Elon Musk and fucking Roger Waters and these guys to be like, well, we need to have peace now. You know who else does that? Rand Paul. We need peace. We need engagement. Ugh. It's a fucking talk. It's a Soviet talking point. That's what it is. This is a war. And you know who started the war? If nuclear weapons are used, whose fault is it? It's not Biden's fault. It's not Zelensky's fault. It's fucking Putin's fault. He's going to use them or he's not. It's all his fault. Like the Finnish prime minister said, this ends when he leaves Ukraine.
That's right.
That's it. End of story.
Well, that's the off ramp. So everyone's like, oh, he needs an off ramp. Gotta give him an off ramp.
Get the turn around and go home, motherfucker.
Turn around and
That's
go home.
ramp.
You know, you very little has happened to you so far. You're invading in a sovereign nation, and they're taking care of you there. But there's sanctions, and there's all this other financial stuff going on for him. But all he has to do is turn around and go home.
Yeah.
And then, but what's going to happen then is these war crime tribunals are going to go on. So I think the other things to remember about him is I don't see any in this move. I don't see, and of course our president, everyone should take it seriously. It's a serious threat, but we don't let it. It's not a chess move on us. It's just it's a pile of shit on the table, right?
Yeah. It's
coming out of our intelligence communities. They know what they're looking at and talking about. They would not be informing the president of something that's credible if it's not credible, and he's saying it's credible. So Putin has threatened you to do this, and the people around him think he's crazy enough to do it. If he's crazy enough to do it now, he's crazy enough to do it no matter what we do. He's crazy enough to do it, right? Like, so that is the point well taken. I also don't think he'll have a single. He'll be talk about being alone in the world. He will really be alone in the world.
Yeah.
If he does this, no one's going to stand by this. They're just not. And I keep coming back to the thing of like, well, when it's an existential threat to the planet, to human beings who aren't engaged in conflict, this isn't something that will only hit the conflict zone that he's in. It just won't. I think as soon as the nuclear proliferation happened, the ball game changed. We have to be willing to put back on the table that we will just take out a leader if the leader is a psychopathic maniac with nuclear warheads and he's going to use them. So I just think even some of that's very, people who are like, poli-sci and intelligence, very serious people, they freak out at that suggestion. But we actually need to revisit that. We really need to revisit this. You can't have a madman with nukes.
Well,
we go to wars to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
And so when one person can be taken out as opposed to millions of innocent civilians and life on the planet itself, this big, massive existential threat. I don't know. You got to be careful because I don't want to get banned.
Obviously, we have to be careful. But I guess what I'm trying to tell people is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of this guy. Just don't be afraid of this guy. No. That's what it's all about. He's
already done the shit to be afraid of.
Yeah.
The shit to be afraid of, he's done it.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's done it. He's committing genocide. That's it. All right. We had 27 seconds left. How about that?
We're getting ready. I'm getting used to this 8-minute.
Getting used to the 8 minutes now.
It's good.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's go in. We're going to jump into our next topic. Gusher. Okay. What
does gusher mean?
Well, in the other land of motherfuckers, right? Because I can say that. We go a little bit towards the desert here to Putin's buddy MBS and the Saudis and take a real hard look at that and this little gameplay where it's, these are people this is the oil and gas lobby. There are so many in Washington, as Steve Schmidt has been pointing out, which has been very interesting, on the Saudi payroll, right? There's people in my business on the Saudi payroll. There's just these are, I'm sorry, I think it's they're the scourge of the planet, that kingdom, that monarchy, whatever the hell they are, the royal whatever McFuckfucks in Saudi Arabia. They just sort of seem to be breeding psychopaths there, and giving them a crown or whatever the fuck they wear. So, uh, I really hope people don't fall for this stunt. I think I think they will. I think the folks listening probably have someone in their family that will fall for this inflation stunt. I don't want the Dems to fall into the messaging of like, it's the economy and inflation and da da da. I think everyone needs to just quadruple down on this is the exact same plane as people who are against our democracy, or they wouldn't be going for this, right? So if you care about protecting democracy, I know it's going to be hard for a month or so with high gas prices and inflation that trickles off of that, but it won't last. It's very temporary. This is super temporary. You think the Saudis are going to let their wallets take a hit like this for us, for our politics? They're making a play. They made it late. If they were really willing to sacrifice a lot for us, they would have done this way back when and hung in there, right? Because then it would be really bad by now. The most they're willing to give up is like a month of income. They'll take a hit for a month or 6 weeks in this ploy, in this chess move. But it doesn't matter who wins. They're going right back to pumping a whole bunch of oil back out, which we need to get off anyway. We need to get away from these people. We need, for every single reason under the sun, we need to get away from this oil addiction that we have. And don't let it fool you. Just don't let it fool you. And I know no one here would let it fool them, but reach out to your family members when you hear them, especially if they're kind of disengaged from politics and like, oh, inflation and everything. It's like, yes, because the Saudis are doing that to us. The same people who fucking took down our towers, the same guy that's high-fiving Putin, who's a genocidal maniac. This gross, the same people who do the starving of the Yemenis children. These are horrible, horrible scourge on the face of civilized world, right? Human beings, but a scourge on civilized world, a scourge on the planet, a scourge on life itself. They're making a ploy. I don't like it. Don't fall for it. It's going to be bad. We all learned how to stay home and do our work from home and not use so much gas and not travel in our cars. If that's what we got to do for a month, then that's what we got to do. But I'm telling you, as soon as the election is over, there's going to be a flooding of barrels of gas and oil in the marketplace, and all those prices are going to go back down because they are not going to lose one more penny 1 second longer than they have to.
Wait, but I think that what you're not thinking of is that the shortfall is going to be made up by the brilliant investment that Jared Kushner is going to do in his affinity fund with the $2 billion.
Yes,
that's going to make up for it.
That's the peace in the Middle East that's happening. We're just going to call him peace in the Middle East, right?
I'm sort of glad that they're doing this in some way, the Saudis now, because it removes all pretense. One of my long taglines during this Trump thing is the traitors are easy to spot. It's very easy now to figure out who the bad guys are. Putin is a bad guy. We kind of know that because of the genocidal madness.
The genocide, yeah.
And MBS is now thrown. We know this from Khashoggi, and those. This is him throwing in with Russia and all those. The Gulf oil companies throwing in with Russia, and again, and the fossil fuel industry even here ain't good. They are working. They're basically, their calculus is we're going to make as much money as we can until the world burns, and fuck it, we'll be dead. That's their calculus.
That's right.
And if we want the world to survive for the next generation of people, hint to our guest, we have to do something about this, and we have to recognize who the threat is. And it's really easy to see now where's all the money coming from? Who are these people? What are they doing? Why do they not care about global warming? A, because of the fossil fuel. B, because they can drill shit in the fucking Arctic now. they're going to make. There's so many barrels under the Arctic, apparently.
Oh, I don't even want to think about it.
Well, that's that's part of the
That's why I
calculus.
always thought, tying back to the first segment, where I always thought Putin was going to aim his nuclear warheads from his submarines, because remember those subs were melting down, those nuclear subs, was at the ice shelves, right? So that he could, because he wants that melted. It's just horrible to think about, but I know that sounds okay. You're getting to see inside my mind a little bit, because I've been working a whole week, writing stuff all week. So I'm in a different space than just plugged into the news all the time. But that's where my imagination takes me with that guy. And I think the other thing about it is we don't really know whether this is whose idea this was. It's a very easy play. It's tried and true. It's been done before. But I just feel like Jared picked up the phone and called his buddy and said, "Hey, can you do us a solid?" And I do. There's something so wrong with that human being, with Ivanka's husband. I almost said wife, with her husband. There's just something so wrong with him. Anyone who's willing to just talking about that, you've named it many times, the Blue State genocide, with the pandemic response of just withholding materials and care and protective equipment, and from blue states, thinking it would hurt them more, there'd be more death and suffering, and therefore the governors would take a hit, and that would be good for Trump reelection. Anyone who calculates that way doesn't have a problem with anything. They just don't have a problem with anything that would harm humanity, anything that would harm the planet. He's probably got his bunker. He probably has a seat on the space penis, one of the space penises. These guys all push their chips over. The tech people, especially the billionaires, especially, they got these briefings and the reports about what was happening to climate, what was happening to the planet because of our addiction to Saudi oil and oil everywhere else. And I think that's when they came up with their plans of, we're going to buy, where's the best place? If you talk to those experts in climate, they'll tell you New Zealand for a number of reasons. So they put their bunkers in there and started building spaceships to get off the planet. They really think that they're just going to escape this thing. And they doubled and tripled down on going in with the bad guys to somehow figure out a way to profit from all of our misery and the planets and the death of the planet. It's just awful. So remind everybody, as you talk to everyone, folks, who the Saudis are, what this oil and gas play is, what the inflation is. It is very, very temporary. Fascism is permanent.
Yep. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's the thing. The other thing, just real quick before we we have to reveal the director's cut.
Oh my God, the director said we did something different.
It's something we tried something different. Is that the situation in Florida, this hurricane, like these things are going to happen with more and more frequency.
Yeah.
More people died in this hurricane than at any time since 1935, when we didn't know anything like we know now, and the houses weren't built as well and all this stuff. And the people that died, most of them drowned, which is just horrifying to think about, right? And obviously DeSantis is to blame partially for not evacuating Lee County, whatever, but it's just, this shit is going to keep happening. And of course, the irony is it's going to happen mostly in the states that are the bad guy states, who are then going to demand federal money, take the federal money, use the federal money, and then, bitch and moan about the federal government overreaching and this kind of thing. Like it's a circle of illogical dipshittery. And I don't know, maybe the icon, if I were to use an emoji for what the cycle of dipshittery would look like, it would be the white boots that Ron DeSantis was wearing.
Oh, those white boots.
Which, our friend Moscow Never Sleeps, who's down there, says everybody wears those. He's catering to the crowd. He knows what he's doing. And I'm sure that's right. But everyone else in the country thinks he looks like a fucking idiot. So
it doesn't help his presidential ambition.
Yeah, it does not. I'm not as worried about this guy as a serious presidential candidate, since he came out to a hurricane dressed from the waist down like a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, like somebody memed, right? Okay.
Well, and those boots had not seen one lick of work. So people might wear those and they might be down there, but are they just running to the grocery store in them or going out for a cocktail? I think they're working in those white boots. So
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
here we go. Gal, what's Gal say? DeSantis told them voluntary evacuation only because the state isn't going to tell you what to do. Woo.
Isn't going to tell you what to do, except
Yeah.
in matters of like abortion and
Right.
it makes no sense. Again, just white boot emoji from now on. Okay.
White boot emoji. We need one.
Yeah. We need the
Okay.
white boot emoji. All right.
Speaking of little symbols. All right, so this is the director's cut. I'm going to set this one up because everybody loves the karaoke, and we did something different. We released it early, the original one, because we just sort of wanted to give you guys a tease and let you know, we just enjoyed it so much. But this is how this happens. I'll tell you how the karaoke happens. It goes back and forth with either me or Greg, mostly Greg, right? But we talk. We're like, this was literally yesterday morning at like 4 a.m. Like, oh, we don't have any media, because I've been just working so hard. And it's like, oh, what are we going to do? We need something. And I was like, it's something about Alon, something about his indecision. We need something a little bit more punk rock. I wish we didn't have, we've been going for these poppy songs, something different. And Greg goes, I got it. Hangs up with me. And I swear to you, was it a half an hour?
It was an hour. It took me an hour. Yeah.
Okay. In comes this thing. And then, of course, it was so great. I do my graphics to it. It's incredible. And I reach out to Chunkle, who I saw in the comments there. And I was like, hey, what do you think about doing this? Show this thing. What about this idea at the end? He goes, yeah, I can do that. And that came in like that.
Yeah.
So this is how fun it is to work with you guys. All right, let's go.
With all the money that I got, should I buy or should I not? I'm a protector of free speech, living a life of Robin Leach. With my space penis and my yacht, should I buy or should I not? Manipulate an NFT, plug crappy cryptocurrency. I caused the crash at Tesla stock.
Exploded like my car.
SEC don't give a fuck. Reals and rubles in the pot. Should I buy or should I not? I don't know if I should buy Twitter. People will know I'm a bullshitter. I guess I'd be the highest bidder. But if I fail, then I'm a quitter. Last time I blame it on a bot. Should I buy or should I not?
My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
But you've described yourself.
I don't care about the economics at all.
He doesn't care about the economics at all, Greg. He doesn't care.
44 billion is a lot of, but then it's like, is it even his money? Like, whose money is it? If someone gives me money that I'm going to spend on something else, like if I'm on a business trip and I'm expensing anything, I don't care how much the steak dinner costs. Fuck it. What do I give a shit? I don't care about the economics because I ain't paying for it. Right.
You're not paying for it.
Yeah. It's all crazy.
All right. Cheers to that. Let's plead the fifth. I plead the fifth with how much I had to do with that.
Fifth. Okay. So it occurs to me because our guest who we're going to bring in, I think he's the youngest guest that we've had.
Yes, and will be, because no young people are watching this.
Oh, Hugo Lowell's not old, but
Hugo Lowell.
But he's younger than Hugo Lowell. And it occurs to me, I love Weird Al. It's all I ever wanted to be in my life is be Weird Al. So this is I'm like living out my fantasy with this shit. And but Weird Al has that Polkas on 45 song, which is just all these classic rock songs that he does as a medley and a polka on the In3D album.
Oh, I don't know this.
And I was so young when that came out. I was like in 5th grade. That a lot of the songs that are classic rock songs, the first time I heard them was as polkas. I don't think I had heard Hey Jude, the actual version, before I already knew Weird Al singing it in this polka form. So
it's amazing. We're not that far apart in age.
yeah,
But
but
we are. It's
it
a
matters.
generation apart, really.
I mention this because we have to ask him if he even knows who the Clash is. I don't know. He might now know.
I see him. He's laughing. He's laughing. He knows.
Only because of my parody of it. Okay, so our guest, he's a Gen Z activist. He's the co-host of Gen Politics with the great Jill Wine-Banks. He's the strategy director for Voters of Tomorrow. He was the youngest Joe Biden delegate. He's been on MSNBC. He's written for CNN and the Chicago Tribune and The Hill. And he's also somehow a junior at UCLA. And and I think he's not old enough to drink, so he's having water. Victor Shi, how are you?
Good. Hi, Greg. Hi, Stephanie. It's great to see you. I'm actually currently at the hotel on campus, and they have some event. And so I got something spicier than water, not alcohol, but this is apparently it's like a sparkling water combined with orange juice and grapefruit and pineapple. So it's almost
it's
like
the sort of thing that I would pour vodka in. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just plead the fifth and we'll all drink to it. Let's go.
Sounds good.
Here we go. Hi, Victor.
It's so great to see you.
It's so good to see you. So Victor and I are buddies because we've met in person a couple times, and I'm going to see you on Thursday, I think.
Yes, for the January 6th hearing.
We do the viewing parties together for the January 6th committee, and we have a blast. And Victor always is like, it's just. I do feel like we're all like your moms, and we have all this stuff to say, and then we turn to Victor, who's just quiet, and then this wisdom comes out of you, something really profound, and we're all like, oh, it's hopeful, but it's also like, oh God, we were not that smart. We were that young. So it's so great thank you for coming on. It's great to see you.
I have to ask before we get started on the actual content part of the show. How did you get hooked up with everything? How did you get hooked up with Jill Wine-Banks? How did this happen?
Yeah.
Because when I was a junior in college, I couldn't even get my professors to give me the time of day.
So I was a junior. No, I was a senior in high school, and it was right before the 2020 primary election in Illinois. And my teacher said that you can become a delegate in Illinois as long as you turn 18 by election day in November. I'm so sorry, there's a lot of noise in the background, but I'll try to
Don't worry about
loudly.
it. I feel like we're at a club. It's great. We love it.
Sounds good. So I went to this. So the process to become a delegate is very convoluted, very difficult. And so I basically went to this convention meeting for anyone thinking of becoming a delegate in Illinois. And I met Jill Wine-Banks at the time. And I had been watching her on MSNBC. She was doing a lot of impeachment commentary during the first impeachment series. And I went up to her and I was like, "Are you Jill Wine-Banks?" And she said yes. And so we both started talking, and we just found it fascinating how at the time I was 17 at the time, supporting then candidate Biden. She was obviously much older than I was. And so we thought of doing something intergenerational. And so that's kind of how everything began. And it was just a kind of a low-level podcast at first. We just invited our friends, and then we started inviting more people on. And so it kind of all went up from there.
It's great. All right. Well, we have a lot to talk to you about. Is there something you want to put on the table first for us to be thinking about? Because I do find it hopeful to talk to you, Victor. You're very positive and very hopeful about the youth vote and about where and you speak about that on Twitter. Everyone should follow Victor on Twitter. Oh, good. You have Victor Shi 2020. Because it's hard to get a read on if it wasn't for people like you, we wouldn't be hearing that youth voice. It feels like it's very compartmentalized, I think, into different areas of topics and not necessarily just focused on voting. So I would love to hear what you have to say about your generation voting.
Yeah, I mean, it is what can I say about my generation? There's a lot to say about my generation, but I mean, just kind of overview. I mean, we're a very unique generation. We're the most digitally connected. We really kind of center our lives around social media, so much so that it becomes kind of our core identity. We use Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok as a way to really kind of define our brands. We're the most diverse generation, most educated generation, I think third largest generation in America, and almost most at least politically vocal. I wouldn't say we don't turn out rates higher than our kind of older generations, but we are the most politically vocal. We do make our voices heard in other ways on social media, in mass movements. But it's a really interesting generation because like you said, you don't really hear from a lot of us loudly. I mean, you do have a lot of Gen Z activists like David Hogg. You have Olivia Giuliano. You have some of these amazing Gen Z activists, but you also have Gen Z activists or Gen Zers who are just really kind of disconnected from politics. And that's kind of been, I think, what you've seen a lot of. But I think recently, and especially after the Dobbs decision, at least I saw this huge transformation in young people and their willingness to pay attention to politics. I think a lot of the times my friends, especially out here in LA, they wouldn't comment about politics at all. I remember the first time I saw you, Stephanie, at Kathy's house, there wasn't one person I knew my age who watched the January 6 hearings. It was really, really profounding. But after the Dobbs decision came out, I think people really paid attention. And then you have President Biden delivering on a lot of the key issues. It started with fighting climate change, and then came forgiving student loans, and then most recently with pardoning everyone convicted of simple marijuana possession. So you have all of these kind of factors that young people care deeply about, and that President Biden and Democrats are delivering. And I think young people are really starting to pay attention now.
Do they realize that big act that was, and you have to name it for me, Greg, because I can't remember the name of it. We had to change the name of it.
Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction Act. Does your generation realize that was actually a climate bill?
Yeah, so I think if you were to ask most young people what the Inflation Reduction Act, I don't think they would know, but they do know that President Biden has made progress on climate change. And I think I think Democrats have done a good job at selling those kind of individual points of the bill. Yeah. I don't know what name I would have come up with the bill, but it's not a great name in my opinion.
No, I mean they couldn't get Manchin to sign off on it if they had to rename it so that he felt comfortable doing that. But maybe we can do a little video or put something out where we're going 1, 2, 3, like a TikTok, something, whatever would help. And go ahead, Greg. Yeah.
This has nothing to do with anything, so I don't want to distract. Okay.
And I better drink.
Okay. I want to compliment you on wearing a shirt with a collar, because I live with 2 Gen Zers who are my children. And I feel like the generations have gone from, dressing really formal to like my generation wearing jeans all the time and being like, we're going to wear jeans. And now you guys are like, my kids are like, I'm just going to wear pajama bottoms everywhere I go.
That's what they wear.
And my son just doesn't comb his hair. He just gets out of the shower.
And COVID did not help that at all.
No. It's like this whole weird thing. So I just want to say thanks for
thanks for putting on a collar.
Your hair's combed. You have a collar on. I hope my son watches this and takes something from it. It's good to see. So what now? Tell us a little bit about this. This was at the end of the day yesterday, Biden's decision to pardon. It's going to be about 6,000 people, which is still, it's not a lot of people relative to the country, but it's still a lot of people who are in prison for possession federally for weed. What I have observed, and again, I live in New Paltz, New York, which is a very stonerish sort of town, but I think that there has been this shift generationally between alcohol shifting to weed. Gen X, mostly alcohol. The millennials, I think they just eat avocado toast. And you guys are more like weed based from what I've seen. Is that true? And if so, like, this seems like it's a really big deal in terms of, even in a casual way. I remember when I was in college, there was like the High Times, and this sort of thing was fantasy. It was science fiction.
It was
that
science
the president
fiction.
Would do something like this.
So
do people care?
It
what's
was. It's shocking to us. I'm thrilled, by the way.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm not in for prohibition. It leads to very bad things, and this certainly did. But yeah. Victor,
I'm so in terms of my journey, I think it has a huge impact. But so much of, I think, what's interesting, and I'm curious what you guys think, or what it was like when you both grew up. I mean, it seems like there was kind of a generation that kind of viewed drugs. I mean, there was that whole kind of war on drugs, and anyone who used drugs was, I don't know, like there was just kind of this negative stereotype about drugs, like, I don't know, marijuana and other types. But I think now young people kind of really see this through the lens of more equity and racial justice, where like we see, the war on drugs, and that was really targeting Black people who use drugs, and that those were the first to pay the price for that. And so now when we see President Biden making this decision, it kind of, I don't know. It makes my generation, I think, kind of realize that this is more of an equity/racial justice issue. You have marijuana, and most people just use it here and there. They don't smoke it all day long. But if they do that, they may have, they may go to jail, they may get convicted. So all of these issues, and those, I guess, hurt Hispanics. They always hurt Black people first. And so I think that a lot of this kind of comes down to just opportunity, giving people a fair shot at life. And that's something that young people, I think, are really wired from day one to believe in. We kind of think through things through kind of an intersectional lens. So we try to think of how this will benefit all communities and what Black people are thinking, what Asian Americans are thinking, what all these communities are thinking. And at the end of the day, it's just like, you shouldn't deserve to go to jail just for using a little bit of marijuana or having your entire life upended for using this drug. And so I think there is an interesting generational shift. And I don't know what it was like, 10, 20 years ago before it was before you saw this movement to
you think we're only 10, 20 years out for you? Okay, well, I'll tell you. So,
Yeah.
And it might be a little bit different. So I was born in the 60s and was young in the 70s and young adult in the 80s. And in the middle of the country. Okay, so right in the heartland. And nothing stopped anybody from having access to drugs. I mean, it was there was what kind of came after me, and I think might hit you, is all of the harder stuff kind of came back by the time we get to Greg's generation, like the coke and all that kind of stuff was around. But we were just, there was weed everywhere. We called it pot, right? Now we're supposed to say weed now. And it was very, it was illegal, and there was a stigma, and there was this gateway drug, and there was all this satanic music. You're listening to satanic music and smoking pot, and it was like that. And High Times was this magazine that was like this underground kind of thing that had just been coming out and circulating. And in there was just all the information anybody could ever want to get on what marijuana really was, its medicinal qualities, how, all of that was going on. So it definitely was a culture thing. I was a deadhead for a couple summers. So, I mean, I had a whole thing going on, but it was, I feel like what the Republicans are saying now about it, I've heard some of the sort of extremist stuff come out. I don't know that works anymore. I feel like it's falling on everybody's deaf ears. But I certainly will say this to you. And it's, by the way, it's just an echo and a repeat of what we heard in the 70s and 80s of like, oh, it's going to blow. It just feels like the same stuff. This was also the era where they were playing records backwards. And I mean, it was just, people were dumb. It was dumb. And it was all junked in together. And young people didn't pay any attention to it. And my parents were young parents. But they were hippies. They were marching on. They were going through marches. They were doing so that they were also like So that's what it was like, Victor. But politically, you couldn't touch it. You would. I mean, I never thought in my lifetime there would be a president who said, screw this, right? This is an injustice happening here. Never thought I'd ever hear that.
There's a couple of points I want to let you talk, but
Sorry.
The drinking age got raised, like when I was in junior school, maybe, and it became much harder to get alcohol until you were 21, and I think that more than anything caused the shift away from alcohol. The purpose was to get younger people to stop drinking, and it absolutely worked. There's also, to your point, LB, marijuana is tied into immigration. Like the two of them are they're sort of tightly combined. Like there's a lot of resources that the federal government uses to police marijuana.
That's true.
It's called weed because it's a fucking weed. It's, if you are allowed to grow it, it's apparently super easy to grow. I don't do pot at all. I don't like it. I hate how it smells. It's awful, but I'm totally for it, and
I'm the same way.
Yeah. It's weed. That's why they call it that. But if it's illegal, then it has to be imported from Mexico, and you have people coming here and under horrible circumstances, and they're abused, and lots of this stuff ties up. The federal government takes all this money and invests in the DEA to try to to try to stop the marijuana stuff. And I don't know what the percentage is, but a significant percentage of illegal drugs is marijuana, not heroin. In terms of what people were actually consuming. So if you reverse it, if you just say, rather than spend the money on trying to enforce this shit and treating it the same as heroin or something really serious, let's legalize it and tax the fuck out of it. And then instead of spending money, we'll be getting money. Yeah. Duh. And it also helps with the immigration stuff. It solves so many problems. Yeah. And Victor, what you said, I think tracks in terms of what I've seen with my kids and their friends. And again, I'm in a very blue town, but there is this sense of racial awareness, like really acute, and which is really encouraging. I think to see. Yeah.
I think what yesterday's decision was so monumental for a lot of young people was because I think what you kind of see with young people, especially when it comes to President Biden, is I think they see him as someone who isn't progressive enough, which is why you saw so many young people support Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren during the primaries. But President Biden has been so progressive when it comes to the issues that young people care about, especially with climate change, addressing student loans, and now marijuana. And so I think that now for a lot of young people, they see President Biden, there is no, short of fully legalizing marijuana, which hopefully that will come in the months and hopefully the rest of his administration. But so far, he has lived up to every single campaign, well, not every single, but most of his campaign promises. And he has been the type of candidate who a lot of young people wish they had in 2020. I don't think they expected this type of President Biden, the kind of dark Brandon, to come out in full force and be relentless against Republicans and then start addressing issues like climate change and student loan forgiveness and marijuana so head on. And so I think for a lot of young people, that's why it's so kind of monumental, is because President Biden has taken on this kind of new position that a lot of people, I don't think, expected.
Well, here's what I think is important too. And it was Brianna Wu who said this the other day, but it's something that it's really been ruminating for me. And if you can keep getting the word out, talk to all your friends who are on campus. Here's the deal. He's done more for the youth vote than I think any president we can, in terms of policy, in terms of actually delivering on promises and getting it done. If you guys don't show up and vote, no one's ever going to listen to you again in politics. You're not going to get it. So if this doesn't do a turnout, then it will be catastrophic for your generation and the generations coming after you. It just will. Here's the thing. They come for us. We're a capitalist society. It's the same as marketers and companies, right? They will market to you for influence, right? But they know you, or to you for something you like that they know that your parents are going to buy if you're your age or a little younger. Everything else, they market to us. They market to us and older because we're the ones with the jobs and the careers and the pocketbooks and the income to buy it for our kids and buy it for ourselves and buy it for and be there with our parents. We can spend. You guys aren't in a position to spend like we spend. You're just not. So what you do have is you have influence. You have influence. And so marketers want that. Politicians, it's the same thing. But you actually have the same kind of currency that we have, regardless of your age, regardless of your job, regardless of how much money you're making, regardless of any of that. You have exactly the same currency that anyone older than you has when it comes to politics, to your future. It's your vote. That's what it is. We're on equal footing with that. My bank account has as much in it as your bank account. So if everyone can if we can get that to sort of be this consciousness of like, oh, this is actually what I have to spend, and I'm on equal footing with anyone else who has this to spend. We've got one vote. Let's give it.
Right.
You can really take control. I think if young people could figure that out, boy, could they be control. They would be controlling so much right now. It'd be incredible.
And I think a lot of young people, though, like some of the kind of reasons why young people don't vote is because they feel like they have no power or they feel like they have no voice. So if we can give young people, I think, the agency and empower them to really know that they do have a voice, and that at the end of the day, while there are so many issues wrong with our electoral system and gerrymandering and the electoral college, at the end of the day, the whole point of voting is so that every person's vote matters. Every person has one vote, no matter how old you are, where you come from. It should be one person, one vote, and young people have, like you said, just as much power as you do. And so I
Just
think
as
if we
much
can get that
currency.
out into the world as possible, it would
Yeah.
go a long way. I totally agree with you.
Yay!
I think there's a learning curve too that we have to try to accelerate. I think because it's like, you know,
Yeah.
you know, I was I don't want to do this, that, and the other. I'm not going to fall for this two-party thing is bullshit. And then you realize as you get older that no, actually that's not how it works. If you want shit, like look at, you know, everybody was, like you said, all crazy about Bernie. But the person who would have done all that shit is Hillary, because she knows how things work. And you have to know how things work and have this party apparatus behind you to actually do anything. Now, in our Gen X days, there's a filmmaker named Richard Linklater in Slacker, the movie, who famously said, "Withdrawal in disgust is not the same as apathy." And there's a lot of this Gen X, we're not going to vote because it's all the same. Both parties are the same. And my son, who is 17, gives me some of this shit, you know, and he registered, but he's like, I registered about a party. And then he's like, I'm going to vote in the primary. I'm like, no, you're not, because you didn't fucking register as a Democrat, dumbass. And he's like, oh, I have to register as a Democrat to be in the. I'm like, yeah. So you better, you know, if you register with a party, you can vote more. And he's like, oh, okay. Because he doesn't understand how it works. And I think it just naturally takes time to get things to work. And, you know, I speaking as from myself, when I was younger, I was more idealistic and all this kind of stuff. And I went to the Ralph Nader rally at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, no, Greg.
It was fucking amazing. The people that were there, LB, oh my goodness. You would not believe.
No.
You would not believe.
No.
A late night talk show host performing on stage. Lots of people, lots of
people there falling
lots
for
of
that
chaos
off.
agents
Yeah.
also. But now I know, you know,
But
and I
now
was in
you
New
know.
York. Al Gore won New York. It was safe.
Well,
Anyway.
Victor knows already at this, so we're so have such a benefit of having you around. But, okay, will you stick around with us for the next two segments? We'd
Of
love
course.
to have you. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Before we do that, tell everybody where they can find you. I know Greg gave that opening there, but I want to make sure everybody knows where can we get yours and Jill's podcast, where, you know, we've got your Twitter handle. We can see where to find you on Twitter. Let everybody know.
Yeah, so for the podcast, you can find us wherever you follow your podcast. We're a part of a great kind of network of podcasts. We're under Politicon, so they have the Mary Trump Show, they have Sisters-in-Law, which is another podcast that Jill does, and they have our show, iGen Politics. So you can find us every week. We do a live segment on YouTube, and then it gets released the next day as audio. My Twitter is at Victor Shi 2020, and there you can find some of my articles that I write and some other things. So those are the kind of two main ways that you can find, I guess, my work.
Yay! All right. Well, we had a nice long segment with you. I've stopped timing the guest segment.
That was like more than 8 minutes.
You haven't
Yeah,
figured
we
that
don't
out,
care.
Greg.
Okay.
I don't do it for that, but we're gonna do it for the rest of these, and one of them will be probably
Sounds good.
short. All right. So the next one, Greg, get us into this, The Clash.
Okay, we call it The Clash because I forgot to ask. Did you know that song, right? The Clash song?
Yeah, I knew the song, but I mean, truth be told, I did have to look up the lyrics to know who the band. Like, I didn't know. Like, I couldn't tell you who sang this song or which band sang the song, but I have heard of the song. Yes.
Okay. I'm always curious because you just never know. And my son is a musical, like that's what he does. He knows all the whatever stuff. It's like nutty. So he's not.
Greg is going to adopt you by the end of this. If you haven't figured that out.
What's that?
I said Greg is going to adopt you by the end of the show.
Yeah,
we're
going
that out.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So the next segment, it's called The Clash, and I don't even know why we're calling it that. Oh, because we're talking about Twitter. We're talking about Elon Musk and Twitter. Is he going to buy it? Is he not going to buy it? At the end of the day, like there's nothing you and I can say or do that's going to change the outcome of this. You know, let's hope that the Delaware Chancery Court, you know, puts the best interest of the United States above business. Oh, right. They never do that. Never mind. That's not going to happen. But I think this is an attack. I think Musk owning Twitter would be a catastrophe of epic proportions. And the reason why I think that isn't just because I the fact that anyone's watching this show by my being on Twitter or any of this stuff. But I think Twitter is unique among the social media at getting out information in a concise, easy, simple, quick way. Because people tell me sometimes, well, I don't really do Twitter. I don't get it. And people watching this might not get it. But the way Twitter is if you're interested in any topic, no matter what the topic is, you can hone your Twitter account to follow certain things and suddenly be enormously plugged into the topic, whether it's politics or the Trump-Russia stuff, which is how we know each other, or Dancing with the Stars or the New York Knicks or whatever. Whatever it is that you're interested in, you hone in on these topics and suddenly your feed is awash in all this really interesting stuff. And you find out things almost immediately. Like I remember when Manafort was where that trial was coming on, and who was client number 3, remember, of Michael Cohen? LB, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, everybody. I had to shut my door.
Oh. What were you going to say?
Well, I was saying it was Sean Hannity.
Right. But they didn't say who it was. And somebody on Twitter was in the courtroom typing, and I was maddeningly hitting refresh. And when it said Sean Hannity, I can't even, it was almost like, it was one of the most joyful moments that I experienced in 4 years. Like I couldn't contain my excitement. I ran to my boss. I was like, oh my God. But that happened almost instantaneously. Like in the olden days, you have to wait till the next, maybe you watch the news or the next day you read about the paper. I knew about this within 30 seconds of the person saying it. And that's what Twitter does. It's so fucking valuable. It's valuable in countries that are oppressed. It's valuable around the world. It brings people together in this amazing way. Look at the communities that we've been able to forge here because of Twitter, man. We're all here because of Twitter, So for Elon fucking Musk, this moron, this immature man-child who doesn't give a fuck about anything and is just dumb as just lacks any kind of wisdom or concern for anything. For him to go in there, it's like Trump and NATO. He's just going to go in there with a chainsaw and ruin it, and it can't be replaced. We can try to have other platforms, and I think we should, and we'll talk about that down the line on further episodes of the show. But Twitter can't be replaced. It's never going to be replaced. And I think it's something that we need to protect in a sense. And him doing that, whatever the powers that be can do to stop this from happening, they got to fucking stop it from happening, because he's a bad actor, that guy.
Well, are you going to go? So what we were going to ask each other was, should I stay or should I go?
No, I'm not going anywhere.
Fuck that guy. Algorithms. Okay.
Fuck that guy. I'm not.
Greg is staying.
Ukrainians are staying and and I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere? I might go. I don't know.
No, don't go. Oh.
What about you, Victor?
I think I'm going to stay, but I really hope that, if he comes back, which God forbid, I hope that people learn their lesson and don't retweet him and give him the platform. But I don't know what journalists are doing now. Exactly. It doesn't give me much hope. So if there's some way to mute him, I would love to, or block him from.
You can block him. I haven't blocked. I think I haven't blocked. But it's more look, we got that thing that leaked, which explains the Twitter thing at the end. There were people when they looked like Elon this deal was gonna go through a few weeks ago or a month ago, and the folks at work kicked off the platform for very good reason. There's really bad actors, right? And that lost the first thing that, and they are connected to him or connected to his person in his office saying, am I going to get back on Twitter now? And they're like, yeah, we're working on it. And so it's like, oh, you're going to bring actual Holocaust denying Nazi operatives back on and allow them to, so it's, I don't know, guys. It's going to be bad.
Right, in the name of free speech.
I do think it's going to be bad, but we'll see. All right. I don't know if we have anything else to say about that. In the comments, tell people where I think everybody says, oh, here's Jim. They fucking nuked me right before I could get my archive. There we go. You know? So we've already seen a lot of bad stuff happen to people. And this is supposed to be the free speech platform, and they were targeted simply because of their speech or simply because of their political views. So, it's not looking good. I don't know, guys. It's not looking good. All right. We're going to go on to the next one, which is gold-plated M&Ms.
No.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm stepping on myself.
You put the thing up.
I'm so sorry. This is announcements. It's the announcements. Greg, what happened this week? Do you know?
Let's see. Maggie Haberman has a book out. Did you?
Oh,
No.
yes. I hadn't heard.
Wow. Someone
I-
here has had a podcast drop, I think.
I had a big podcast drop. Yeah. So it's been a little bit of a crazy week. So Elizabeth I dropped on Monday, which was, oh my God, I'm telling you, years worth of work. And so I brought a little bit, I talked to the studio and I'm like, let's do a little bit of something here for you guys. So I grabbed a clip from the first episode. We'll play it for you so you can kind of hear the scope of what it is, because it sounds very bubblegummy. It's the frame of it is Elizabeth as the first influencer. And we get into like what that means to be an influencer. But really what we're doing is breaking down her life and saying, this is the kind of life that was led that allowed one person to actually bring about such significant change, which she did in the fight for AIDS. And what led her to that moment, and then what happened afterwards. But you have to kind of go through these chapters of her life to understand that. So it was just this great honor to just have a blank page and dig into these archives and pull all these episodes together and write all this. So I grabbed a clip that I think summarizes that, so you can get a feel for what the themes are that we explore, and also what the chapters of her life and how we get into them.
All right, here we go. It's really good, by the way.
Good.
I listened first.
You listened to it? Okay,
really
great.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good stuff.
thank
And she's great. And she's,
Oh,
just-
Katy Perry. Yeah, she's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean Elizabeth
She's
Taylor.
amazing.
I mean,
Oh, and
Katy
Elizabeth
Perry is
Taylor.
also
Both of
good.
them. Okay, it's narrated by Katy Perry, everybody.
Narrated
Sorry.
by Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Just a little roar, Katy Perry. Okay, let's listen.
Regardless of how much you may know or remember, you'll hear things you've never heard before. From Elizabeth and from those who shared a part of her life. People she loved, whose lives were personally influenced by her, and both they and the world around them were changed forever. Her influence did not just happen overnight. Elizabeth had longevity. Her power as influencer evolved with the scope of her life. She went from the biggest movie star on the planet to a woman who dealt with loss, sickness, and near death. She was named the most beautiful woman in the world at age 15. She commanded the first $1 million salary as an actor back in 1959. She broke the studio system and owned her own production company.
She broke that mold by doing Cleopatra as soon as she had the freedom to pick her own project, and Cleopatra changed the studio system forever.
She was the first public person to openly enter rehab, destigmatizing addiction and recovery.
When she came into the Betty Ford Clinic and made the announcement, their phones were ringing off the hook. They weren't prepared. Even Betty Ford was frustrated because they couldn't handle it. She was an alcoholic, she was a drug addict, and she was going to get help. And that act literally destigmatized rehab. Look at how many people today go to rehab. She paved that. She made it okay. Like, if Elizabeth Taylor can be open about her need for help around these issues, everyone else was like, I guess I can too.
She wore and owned the world's largest and most valuable private jewelry collection.
Today, it still stands as the most important single owner jewelry sale ever to come to auction. Do I ever think we will experience something like that again? I don't think so. There were many world records set that day.
She built a business empire that completely transformed the multi-billion-dollar fragrance world.
She was Elizabeth Taylor, president of the Elizabeth Taylor Beauty Company. And the truth of the matter was, when it came to her brands, we took direction from her.
And for all today's young influencers building their followers through glamour shots, Instagram selfies, and likes, it was the public's unquenchable thirst for Elizabeth Taylor that first created the paparazzi as we know it today.
The restaurant was shaking. I mean, the walls were shaking because there were so many paparazzi pushing at the windows.
She was fearless like no other.
I'll get off in a minute. I'll get off. I have something to say. There's 70,000 people in this stadium tonight. Look at yourselves. Look at how many you are. You are the future of our world. You are the best and the brightest. You are the shining lights that will illuminate a better world tomorrow.
That was great.
It was great. That last thing always gives me chills. So that was, and you'll hear it when we get to that episode. Her granddaughter tells that story of Elizabeth going on stage at the benefit for Freddie Mercury for AIDS, which was the largest benefit ever. And that is just how she was the whole time. You are the future. You are precious. We love you. To just scores of Americans that have been completely abandoned by their president, by their government, by their family, their friends, their neighbors, their communities. She did it. Like she changed all of that, and she did it just truly from love. All she ever expressed was love and acceptance and value. Just incredible. It was incredible. I had the best time writing this, you guys. I really did. So thank you for letting me talk about it a little bit and promote it a little bit.
No, it's great. And I think, everybody should listen to it. And she's, Elizabeth Taylor is this, kind of outsized person who invented and pioneered all these things. And that's it. We were to bring it back around to what we were talking about before. If she's the first influencer, that's another thing that Gen Z has that maybe X and these other generations don't have as much, is the ability to influence other people,
that's right,
especially other young people in using the social media and stuff like that. And that's really valuable too. And that's a way that, I think that you and your cohorts, Victor, are really killing it. So.
Thank you. I also, I will say, I have the podcast on my, to be listened to podcast this weekend, because during the week I don't have too much time to listen, but I'm planning on listening at least to the first. You said it's 3 episodes at a time, right? So it's
just like we released a bunch up front,
right,
up front, and then it'll be one a week. So
1 a week from there.
Yeah, and this one coming up, the episode 4, is it's probably one of my favorites. I didn't think I would. I know you feel that way about it, but it's great. It does, the whole thing builds and builds and builds. And
I love these type of podcasts because it's more than just one person or like an interview or someone talking. There's kind of like a story element to it. So I'm very excited for it.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah,
very good.
It's good stuff.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks
LB,
for all the
what's your favorite Elizabeth Taylor movie?
Oh, Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
Yeah, doesn't even come close. Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, there's Cat on Hot Tin Roof. I mean, there's so many that are so amazing, but Virginia Woolf just isn't a whole other.
Yeah. No, I do. The amount of alcohol that they drink in that is astonishing. Astonishing. Oh my God. It's crazy.
Yeah. they partied.
It's really good. Okay. So this ties into our last topic, which is gold-plated M&M. LB, what are we talking about with gold-plated M&M? What on earth could that mean?
What on earth could that mean? All right, so we've got these two ex-wives of Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, who took that fortune that they helped build. Let's be honest, right? Those men God help those men. They can barely, probably find their pants. So here were the women with them, teaching them how to function, look people in the eye, be nice, but also not just that, giving them an intention and direction for the wealth that they were building. We know Melinda Gates certainly did that. I don't know too much about Mackenzie Scott. So those are our 2 M's. And now here they are taking the money, and their husbands can't seem to figure out what to do with it other than, building the penises to go to space. So, or have the bunkers or whatever, whatever is happening there with Bill Gates. So I feel like he's wandering around, trying to figure out, how do I get out of my past? Right. But here's Melinda investing in women, investing in the future of this planet, doing all of the stuff that I wish their husbands had done from day one, as they started to amass these mass fortunes and evade all these taxes, not taking anything away from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They've done a tremendous work, I'm sure. But I just, we've got this consciousness happening, right, where it's women with the money and the power and the philanthropy, and what are they choosing to do with it? Elizabeth certainly set the mold for that. Just so everyone's clear on that, she was a billionaire in terms of the size of the empire that she built from her perfume empire, and then had all of her valuable stuff, and very intentionally set out to make sure that all of that was left with intention, that it had a direction, that the wealth that would come from her estate and from everything knew exactly where to go to benefit mankind. Period, full stop, end of story. So I do think it's up to women. I think we talk a lot about, it's going to be the Western woman that saves the world, either from our voting or from our issues, or, understanding the priorities, getting in there, fighting for our rights so that everybody else has their rights, since we're the first ones to have it stripped away. And being this sort of bulwark for democracy and for free people and for society. And it looks like it's coming in on the side of the money as well. So I don't know. I just wanted to talk about that. I felt like it was hopeful. We can adjust our lenses for it, and also maybe write to them and say, you need to support. Hey, come and help us out a little bit. Maybe we'll have a new boogeyman instead of George Soros anymore. It'll be the Gates are supposed to give us, the gold-plated M&Ms are supposed to fund us and underwrite democracy. I'd love to see it.
It would be nice. It would be nice. I mean, one of the things that sucks about this crop of very rich people is that they don't seem to be very civic minded, and they don't seem to have that, with some exception, of course, they don't seem to have that chip where they think, oh, I've got all this money, I need to give back to the community and be, I think we talked about this, but I know we talked about it before, John D. Rockefeller, who was far and away the wealthiest American that we've ever had in terms of percentage, and you adjust for inflation and nobody comes close. It's a joke. He invented modern philanthropy because he got tired of people asking him for money. And he was like, okay, I've got a lot of money. We need to make this efficient. How are we going to give it away? How are we going to vet who we give it to? Blah, blah, blah. And he basically came up with that and used it to great purpose. And, all those guys, they were all bastards, but they gave a lot of money to charitable works and stuff. I don't feel like these guys give a shit. This space rocket stuff is just, who gives a shit about any of this stuff? It's just like, I don't know, the libertarian quote unquote mindset is so disgusting. And, it's immature. That's something that you might think when you're like a 16-year-old boy. You might think, everybody should just do their own. But that it belies an ignorance of how fucking society works, and that there are people that need help, and that, through no fault of their own, they come on hard times or this or that. And what do you want to do with society? And, it's incumbent on all of us. I think this is one of my core beliefs, is that we have to help the people in the society that are the most maligned, the most bullied, and the people that have the least resources and stuff like that. We as a society have to come together to help them. And society should be measured by how they deal with and treat people like that. And right now, the U.S. is failing in this way. And, Biden's making great strides, but, with the Senate locked up, and the Senate just fucked the way that it is because of the system, the architecture of the Senate makes it so hard to change anything. It's hard. But, there are
two more senators.
We need 8 more senators. I'm reading this great book right now that I bought at the book fair called Murdering Mckinley. This book is amazing. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. Okay. It's about the guy, Schulgosh, who shot Mckinley. Mckinley was this kind of dopey, he was a Republican. I mean, still pretty soon after Lincoln, but kind of coursing towards the modern laissez-faire business Republican. Didn't really care about the working people, but also didn't have any money himself. In fact, was in such debt that his rich friends had to help him out of debt, which, that happens now too, I think, doesn't it? And so Schulgosh shot him at the Buffalo Fair and killed him He died a week later, and he was a guy who claimed to be an anarchist, which at the time meant, we want 8-hour workday, we want the weekends off, and we want rights for women, and we want this, and this. And Teddy Roosevelt became president at age 42, the youngest president we've ever had, condemned anarchism and anarchists, and basically took everything that Shulgash wanted to do and tried to do it. Like, it was this crazy time, right? And I don't know. We're at this inflection point in history right now. We're at an inflection point in American history. And I'm so grateful that Biden is the president, because, Victor, as you said, I think that he's the best president of my lifetime. I'm significantly older than you. And you're not missing anything going back. You got to go back a while before you get somebody as good as he's been. I think he can do it, but we're going to need help. We're going to need everybody pulling together. We're going to need to get out the vote and, not only keep the Senate and House, but expand on it and get lucky along the way, that some things happen that break in our favor, because, the fascists are knocking at the door, and, it may be that Putin is dead next time, this week next time. That's very possible. Maybe there's a revolution in Iran, and that Khomeini is overthrown, and it may be that Trump is indicted, and all this shit happens in the same month that the Queen dies, right? It's this crazy period of time right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's all I got to say.
All right. Well, I want to hear from Victor.
Me too. I'm talking too much.
Yeah, me too. Victor, give us an up here. What do you see in terms of, now we've got the Ex-Wives Club investing in the future of America. How does that feel? What do you think?
I mean, I am so for it. And I want to mention this one book, speaking of books that totally transform my perspective on especially white male billionaires. It's called The Tyranny of Merit by Michael Sandel, who is this kind of, he's known to be one of the best modern philosophers, but he kind of takes this idea of merit and kind of spins it on its head, which is basically, you have all these billionaires now who they earn this money, and along the way they have help from so many people, like women, like just working class people, to help them get to where they are. But there's this selfishness now where they get to the billionaire status and they don't share it with anyone. They think they are entitled to all of it, and they don't choose to spend it in the right way. But what I think you're seeing especially with like Melinda Gates and Jeff Bezos's wife, is that McKinsey, yes. I think you're starting to see, a whole different way of spending money. And that to me is a really positive change. And I think just in general, the white billionaire men, honestly, I just think they're really selfish in how they accumulate wealth and then spend that wealth. And I think women just have a much better sense of the community and giving back. And so I really hope this is an inspiration to everyone else to rethink how they both earn and then spend money and how they invest that.
I agree. I didn't know where I was going to end up with them when they first were like, I'm okay, let's come on. Because back when Texas passed a law, we weren't seeing anything from these women. And now, boom, they're in. So I'm thrilled that we've had that shift. And it takes money. It's going to take money. It's going to take money to solve
Victor,
all these problems.
We have some questions from the audience. Can you take questions?
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Mind? Okay.
Oh, good.
Here we go. Have you noticed less of your generation volunteering for military service, and why?
Oh, what an interesting question.
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I definitely think I see less of, I have some friends who are going to the Naval Academy and doing service there. But in terms of military service, I don't think there's much of a kind of interest for that in my generation, partly because I think there's already so much going on. And if you serve in the military, that's just kind of one more, I don't want to call it burden, but that's just one more kind of thing that you have to add to your life. You already have the cost of education. You have the Supreme Court taking away rights. You have this democracy that is so fragile. And so I think that for a lot of young people, it's whereas once maybe the military service was one way to go, I don't think that a lot of young people feel that way now. But I do think, I was having this conversation with someone else the other day. I do think that there should be some sort of national service program to get young people back in the spirit of giving back into the community again. Just something like a volunteer day or just going to your community and helping out with something, but doing something where across the nation you have people coming together and giving back to the community. I hope we can go back to some sort of program like that.
I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's
I
Kennedy was
agree.
trying to do that. you know?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
That's something I think Pete Buttigieg ran on too back in 2020.
Yeah, he did. I like Pete Buttigieg. I like Mayor Pete. I do.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody?
Let's not
Any other
forget-
questions for Victor?
I don't know, guy. Any other questions for Victor? We've got an actual young person on the show.
Yes,
This
come
might
on,
never happen
everybody.
again.
I'm so
let's-
excited about having Victor on the show, by the way, and that we talked the whole time. But Greg and I have been so thrilled.
It's so fun.
Yeah, I'm so glad you came on. All right, nope, nobody's doing it. No one's got a question. That's all right. Or we can't find him. Victor, we also can't see this. Greg wears his glasses.
Okay.
This is like
That's a good question, Joe,
here
but
we
it's
go.
too it's
Here we
it's
go.
too
Yeah, that was a very good question.
too
Yeah.
abstract, I think, for here.
Yeah,
Um,
we do have this. You're getting a
Yeah.
lot of love.
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, well, tell us what you got coming up, Victor. Is there anything coming up for you? Still doing all this. Anything we should be focused on as we careen our way towards these midterms? What would
Oh my
you?
gosh,
What
well-
wisdom would you like to leave us with?
We're 32 days out until the midterm election, which seems like a long time, but it's going to really creep in on us really quickly. And so I recently, last month, just joined this organization called Voters of Tomorrow, which is led by someone named Santiago Mayer. He's big on Twitter. He recently went to DC, and his group actually got kicked by Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of
That's
one of
right.
the
She
walkers.
kicked him.
Walked
Yeah.
in front of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then she ended up kicking her because she was walking in front of her, and so that ended up being a whole debacle and just embarrassing for Marjorie Taylor Greene more than anyone else. I'm doing a lot of work with that organization, just really trying to mobilize the youth vote. And I right now I remain optimistic, but like we said, I mean, who knows what October has in store with us? It may be good, it may be bad. Who knows? I mean, if it's somewhat like what we've seen with Herschel Walker, I hope there's more that comes out with Dr. Oz and JD Vance and all of the other Senate candidates and just people running across the country. And so I'm worried on one hand that, Republicans, might squeak it out. But on the other hand, I'm optimistic because I think you're seeing a lot of women and you're seeing a lot of young people really just make their voices heard and just become energized and mobilized after Dobbs and what President Biden is now achieving. And so I think just between now and Election Day and these 32 days, just try to have as many conversations as you can with your friends and your family. Try to volunteer, even if it's just an hour a week. I mean, all of that really matters. In the end, it's these kind of little things that everyone does that's going to make the difference in November and determine whether or not we have a democracy.
Okay.
Victor, thank you for that. Yeah,
we have more
very well
questions. Could you stick around for a few more
Okay,
questions?
is there? Oh, you found them. Good.
Yeah. Are you seeing more Democratic voters or Republican voters as young people?
Oh.
So definitely more Democratic voters. Although I will say there are quite a surprising number of Republican young voters. You see there's a lot of passion with that whole Turning Point USA group, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens. Who are the other ones? I'm blanking on it's like the Ben Shapiros of the world. I mean, they're really kind of mobilizing a specific group of young people, but they're very far right, very, very extreme, kind of represent just this kind of sliver of young people, but they are very loud. But I think after Dobbs and what President Biden is doing, I think you're starting to see a lot more of those moderate young people really kind of get turned off by the Republican Party and all of the extremism that's happening on there. But I don't want to say there's no young Republican, because there are definitely a very loud group of young Republicans coming out against Biden and really falling into that narrative that that whole Owens Shapiro group is perpetuating. So it's scary, but I do think the numbers are on the Democratic side.
Well, those chaos activists that you just on the hard right that you just listed, they know how to master the mediums where young people are, and so mastering these mediums is what's going to make a big difference. And giving people someone that they feel close to in age and they can connect to and relate to is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, it's so much outrage and just that they perpetuate, and that young people. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the downsides of social media is that so on one hand you have social media used for good, but then you have social media used like the way that Candace Owens and all of them use it, and to spread this fear and outrage, and some young people fall for it, and so it's scary, but I think
they fall for the influence. We know about that, all about that. All right, is there another one, Greg?
Wait, hold on. I had it and then I lost it because this is what happens. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Here we go.
Any teasers for what's coming up on your iGen Politics podcast with Joe Banks? This is a good
Yes.
plug for you. Yeah.
So we just about a few weeks ago we transitioned to this live format, and so we've been trying to kind of change the way that we do conversations. And next week we have on Michael Cohen, who's out with the new book, and he's a character. And so
Bill and Michael together is going to be amazing.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my gosh!
It's going to be such an interesting conversation because he's someone who can talk all day long, and he's a very loud person. So he's a character.
Oh, I can't. Okay, I'm watching that. I got to see the Watergate girl go right at Michael Cohen. That's going to be incredible.
Yes, and Jill does have very strong feelings.
Yes. Oh, good. And she always has. I love her.
Sure.
I love her so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have that, and then we're planning on doing some panels with young people, and just ahead of the midterms. And this is also an open invite to you both. You both should come on the podcast too.
We should. I know. I'll send her a little email. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should.
Okay. I'm looking at my Twitter. Looking at my Twitter comments.
Done that. We got to go on a pair as a pair.
Yes.
I haven't done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever really?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Is that it?
No. What restaurant are you at? So I'm looking at my Twitter comments now because again, we usually do the YouTube thing because we can do the we can put it on the comment, and on Twitter we can't. So what restaurant are you at? Someone would like to know. Raising the Hustle would like to know. And I think you said, but it's somewhere on campus.
I'm at this hotel on campus, but it's like a conference hotel. So there's a conference center attached to the hotel. And I thought this would be the area where everything would be quiet, but they actually have a conference right here. And so they have a bunch of rooms open, and it's like a bunch of networking events right now, which with food and drinks, and I think there's like wine and alcohol. There's a bar actually that they set up too. So it's pretty loud.
I think people are jealous and they want to join you.
Yeah, I think they want to meet you there. I think it's giving off a good vibe.
Do you think that people who are engaged now politically will sustain their political engagement long term?
I mean, so that's one of the things I think is, if you look at the data and kind of see when people start becoming involved in politics and kind of how sustained that becomes, the younger you can get someone to be involved in politics, the longer they will be involved. So the earlier you can get someone to register to vote, or the earlier you can get someone to volunteer on a campaign or actually vote, the likelihood of them actually sustaining that is far greater, and they become kind of lifelong participants in democracy. They feel like they know what democracy is about, and they know that there is a power for them in this system. And so it's kind of going back to that one point that we had. A lot of young people kind of feel powerless, but if you can give them that sense of power and that sense of agency, it goes a long way in terms of helping them feel like they're a part of this democracy, and they can participate and be active members of the society.
Yeah, when it comes to politics, we all have the same bank account, and we all have the same bills.
Yeah.
So vote. That's the currency.
Definitely.
That's
okay.
it.
One more question, and then we will
more.
release you into the night, and you can go enjoy yourself. You can go hang out with these guys that are clearly having a good time.
You're having a good time around there. And you're
conference.
on with these.
First,
with
someone
us.
asked if I'm a Mets fan. No fucking way. Come on, don't insult me like this. Aaron Judge. Let's go. Okay. My masochism
That's
only
the
runs
question?
so
It's
deep.
your
No,
sports
your
question?
question is okay. And I forget who asked this. This is from
It's very
Boston
distracted by the
Sister
sport.
on the Twitter.
Yeah.
Kanye West this week. My son, who is 17, is to be 18 soon, loves Kanye West as a musician. He thinks he's the greatest thing. And my son is very music, but Kanye West is just
he's gone off the rails.
Bad. This week he's on Tucker Carlson. He's wearing a White Lives Matter shirt. How did Kanye's antics this week land with the younger generation?
Not great. Actually, right before I came on this show, I was on Twitter, and there was this post. So Kanye West apparently opened this private school for Christians, and he's charging $15,000 for the kids to attend the school. And they made all the kids sing one of his songs. I mean, it looked like a cult, where like there was a conductor who was kind of directing all the kids to sing. I mean, it is wild. If I find the link, I'll DM both of you. But it is just so wild. I mean, I think I mean, it's sad because I think a lot of young people and a lot of people in general kind of see Kanye for his music, and don't really see him for the person he is or the politics he subscribes to. But I mean, how can you look at this stuff and not be turned off by him, no matter how good his music is? I mean, it's just, to me, when I saw that, I was revolted. I mean, I like some Kanye songs, but I'm not a diehard Kanye fan. But when I see this, it's like it's revolting that someone like him could wear a White Lives Matter T-shirt. And I remember, like, he also, when he was with Trump in that room, he was like, I don't believe in slavery or something along that line. I mean, it's just,
everybody's forgotten about that. Yeah,
he wore
He's
this
come a
MAGA
long
cap
way
and
from George W. Bush doesn't care about black people. It's a bit,
Yeah.
that seems like
Yeah.
7 Kanye Wests ago.
that,
Right.
that was definitely 7 ago. And
Yeah.
I haven't heard there hasn't been any good music that I've heard in quite a long time. So, if you're just going to be an activist chaos motherfucker, fine. But, I don't think everybody has to hold him up as being some kind of musical genius when we've got no product.
No,
You didn't like Donda, huh? You didn't like Donda. Oh, my.
So I found the tweet. So Kanye West opened a Christian private school called Donda Academy. Parents must sign NDAs to have their children attend. Price is $15,000 a year. The school's not accredited. And there's a video of all the kids from his Donda school singing Good Morning Donda, which is, I think, one of his songs.
It's better that than everybody knows I'm a motherfucking monster, because that doesn't seem appropriate for schools. And why is it called Donda? Donda's his mother's name, by the way. It should be called Harvard Westlake. Was right there. It was right there. I guess it's already taken. All right, we're way over.
We're way over, but
This was so fun.
This is so fun.
Victor, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for the great questions. It's always fun to do this, and we get so much enjoyment from the comments and the engagement. It really means the world to us. Shout out Sharon Diamond. We love you, and that's
Sharon.
it. We'll be back next week. That's the plan. Let's see. That's all I got. LB, any more closing thoughts?
That's it. That's
Everybody
it.
knows I'm a
Elizabeth
motherfucking monster.
Listen.